One of the things that we wanted to do, COVID-19 kind of changed how we function in the city, in the world. The city has been doing virtual city council meetings and planning commission meetings and conducting business in all sorts of ways. And how we function as a world is changing as well. So tonight we wanted to make sure that we gave every candidate the opportunity to answer some burning questions. We'll have questions that are available to be answered extemporaneously in a Q&A after we answer a standard 5 questions. So the format will be as follows. It will be a brief introduction. It'll be a 3-minute opening comment from the candidate with whatever is burning in their mind and in their positions. And then we'll ask those 5 questions. Then we will move on to the Q&A portion. And if you'll just put those questions in the comments on the Facebook stream, then I'll be able to pull those up and ask those as well. We'll get to as many as we can. We've really allotted about 30 to 40 minutes per candidate to allow proper sanitation and resetting in between the candidates. So thank you, Rita, for being the first one to join us.
Happy to help.
I appreciate it very much. It's very exciting. Technology is a great way for us to communicate to the community. Rita is incumbent, Ward 1, running for a second term. She lives at 2117 Erie. She's married to Jim Pearce with 3 sons, Joe, Mike, and Jonathan Duncan. The Pearce boys own Slaps Barbecue, and Jonathan is a manager there. She's a first-time grandmother. Go by Grandma?
Gma.
Gma. In January, they welcomed Annabelle May Pearce. Congratulations.
Thank you.
She was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and lived in Columbia, Missouri for 6 years, worked as a dispatcher for police and fire, moved to Kansas City in 1980, and worked in management positions in the service industry for 10 years, married and moved to Liberty in 1990, where you worked as a property manager and volunteered with the Clay County Family Court as a court-appointed special advocate. Then you went back to college and received undergrad and master's degrees in criminal justice at UMKC, and then you moved to Weatherby Lake. In 2000, worked as a family court specialist and mediator for 6 years, and then you moved to North Kansas City in 2010. And currently, in addition to serving as a council member, you are the internship coordinator, adjunct professor for the Criminal Justice Department at UMKC, and executive director of Northland Assistance Center, located right here in North Kansas City. What church is that in?
It's located in the First Christian Church. Important to indicate we're located in there, not affiliated with.
Correct. Excellent. So without further ado, and I am going to adjust the camera here in just a moment,
Okay.
while you get, and if you'll just face the camera while
Sure.
you're giving your opening statement.
Sure.
Okay.
Mindy, I really appreciate you, Dave Woods, and all the other people who made this opportunity available to us. You're right, we live in a different time. I live in a different age, so I am kind of learning about Zoom and all kinds of things I did not think I would understand at my advanced age, and much to my surprise, I'm doing pretty well with it. I shared with Mindy I had 2 crises this weekend. My computer and my phone both broke down, and I about had a heart attack, and thank goodness she has this all set up in the studio. That said, there's many reasons why I'm running for city council, but most importantly, North Kansas City has embraced me in a couple of different ways. Well, in a number of ways. I first started working here 14 years ago. Northland Assistance Center took a chance on me. I'd never run a not-for-profit, and now we're very successful. We'll do about $300,000 in services with 1.5 staff. That was 14 years ago, and I started falling in love with the city. After I became employed here, my husband was put on a heart transplant list and was in and out of St. Luke's Hospital while we lived in Weatherby. So we chose to move to North Kansas City to make it easier for me to work, care for him, and get him in the hospital the times he was in and out. The city really embraced me at that time. We were new to moving into the community. A number of people knew who I was, but they didn't know us as a couple. The first year we moved here, we moved in November. It snowed a whole lot that year, 10 years ago, and every day somebody came and took care of my driveway or checked and saw how I was and prayed for my husband. and just completely took us into their hearts. About 8 years ago, after having served in my position with Northland Assistance Center and living here, a few of the residents said, Rita, why don't you run for city council? I'm like, well, let's see, I have like 2 jobs already. Let me give it a lot of thought. And I did, because I started seeing the city moving forward in ways that I'm very, very excited about. I started seeing, as homes were being sold, families moving in. As a matter of fact, I've watched a number of children grow up on both the block on Fayette I lived on and on the block I'm on now, which is kind of exciting. Almost had to help give birth to one. Thank goodness they got to the hospital instead. So my roots are deep here, and I care passionately about this city. And I really care about the way the government works. I know that there's been a lot of things before the COVID-19, and then certainly after, where there's been some division in the way people feel like we should operate. But I think it's operating as it should. I think each of the city council members are representing their ward well. I know in my ward, there's been differences of opinion in regard to some issues, but there are 2 of us, and that's a good thing. So when there's a division into how people think, both sides are well represented, and I think that we need to continue that. I really hope I have the opportunity to continue to serve. I think it takes about 6 months to actually have any idea what you're doing, and it's probably been the last year I feel fairly confident in expressing my opinions and my concerns in regard to the city. So that's my introduction.
Wonderful, thank you. And I got the timer set up for our questions.
Okay.
I didn't. It's our first form, so it took a little bit to get all the bells and whistles all figured out. So
That's
thank
okay.
you, everyone who's watching, for bearing with me as we get everything set up. So the questions that we are asking that are all formatted are questions that were submitted from the community members. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions that are out there that people are going to be interested in getting answers to, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can, but we're going to start with the 5 that were submitted. And get myself ready. Okay, so how will you work to promote diversity in our community?
I thought this was a particularly good question. Our community, it's interesting. We're divided almost equally, men and women, in population in this community, which I found to be kind of interesting. And about a quarter of our population reports to be non-white individuals. I look at our city council, and there are 2 of us at this time who are females out of 8. I look at our city council, I see no minorities represented. But that being said, it's also important to know, in order to be on a board, you need to fill out an application, you need to volunteer. It takes a great deal of time. It's not positions that are solicited. I hope that we can get that out more so that people know there are those opportunities if they have the time for them. In order to be on the city council, you have to run, you have to have an election. But I would like to see more diversity represented. It's just that you can't force people to do it. I recognize that we are not as diverse, well, we're not diverse at all as we should be. We have a great opportunity for it, though. Just look at our high school. You know, when I lived on Fayette Street and even on Erie, there's nothing more joyous than watching the high school kids go to school or come out. Talk about the Parade of Nations and talk about the joy. And, you know, I just never saw any fights. I never saw anything. We backed right up to the high school. They cut through my yard. You know, I think we have a wonderful attitude towards diversity. We just need to work really a lot harder in recruiting so that we represent our diversity. That said, I think that our YMCA does a really good job. The program that they put together, and I wrote it down because I'm not good at remembering things, the New Americans Welcome Center, fabulous. You know, people come in from all different cultures. They put their little pin or their little mark from where they're at. They do English as a second language. They are a wonderful ambassador to diversity. The school system, in conjunction with North Kansas City Library, about a year ago,
I'll let you finish your answer. Go ahead.
Started a real effort in including materials that reflected cultural and other diverse kinds of issues, so they'd be part of their curriculum and also just available to kids checking out books, or adults checking out books through there. I think we have an opportunity through our Parks and Rec department. I think it would be really cool to see it like what they do in Swell Park, the Ethnic Enrichment Festival. We got enough kids in the high school if we did it where well, when and if everybody gets back to high school, that they could participate in that and bring a real enrichment to that community experience. And particularly at that kind of an event, there could be a table set up where people could learn about boards and learn about opportunities and learn about ways that we can represent our diverse community in better ways than we are right now.
Excellent. How do you balance the needs of the residents and the business community? That's a tough one.
I know it is. And never tougher. Let's just not pussyfoot around the issues. I think that Armour Road, and I'm not getting into the whole Armour Road, I'm using it as an example where things really got divisive. And I was sad about that. I think on both sides. I'm a mediator by trade. I think it really divided this community. I think that we as a council did not do a really good job in trying to squash that and mediate it and pay attention to both sides of it. It became, one night all the bicycle people are there, another night all the business people are there. And that's not how North Kansas City is. One of the beauties of North Kansas City is that we're not divisive. We're not, beating each other up in the city council. We're respectful of each other. We can coexist, and we can peacefully coexist. And prior to CV19, we started doing that. And even with the bicycle project, we started making concessions. We started as a council agreeing that maybe it wasn't a good idea to have dedicated bike lanes through the middle of the industrial area. And I think most people agreed with that. We also agreed with the business community that with the Burlington Road project, having dedicated bicycle lanes, perhaps having dedicated bicycle lanes a couple blocks over on Swift, not necessarily a good thing. Why would we impede their business? And we started working together. I think that the groups, I think River North and I think North Kansas City Business Council started working well together. Things were starting to change and get together. That said, I frankly think, as in many things with this virus, that that's only improved relations. Because when I go to my local businesses and get takeout, I see workers in the industrial area at these businesses, spending their money at these businesses. I see community members who are not generally available to go out and have lunch or pick up lunch in the middle of the day, who are working from home. I see them talking to each other. I see them visiting with each other. I don't think we have to be the farmers and the ranchers, which is probably an example that many young people might not get. I think we can play in the same sandbox. I do. And I think we're going to do a lot better job with that, given the fact we have to. We have to all pull together. I mean, this is something we're all experiencing together in our community. And we're unique. We have an industrial area that's clearly marked, and we have a residential area that's clearly marked. And I think the residents need to realize that when things even open up, and even now, the workers there are important for a number of reasons, tax bases, all those sorts of things. But they're the ones who go to our restaurants, because for those who no longer will be working at home, it's unlikely they're going to be popping by for lunch. So we need to recognize the similarities instead of the differences in us and embrace some of the things that we're doing with each other and start working a little bit better. We need to quit this divisiveness. I'm really not, it really upsets me, and it's unsettling, and people who have lived here way longer than I have said it's a different tone in the last year or so, and we don't want to be that community. We want to be the community that, well, everybody wants to move to and still wants to move to.
How can the city better communicate with residents, businesses, and consumers?
Kind of interesting to me. We just got the satisfaction survey, and you and I were talking about this prior to coming on, and in sort of a recap in the satisfaction survey, they asked businesses and they asked residents on a list of priorities, things that are really important to them. And with businesses, and I actually wrote this down, was like 23% said communication was a priority, something we need to work more on. And interestingly enough, 11% of the residents did, which surprised me, because all I hear from residents are, how do we learn about things? How do we learn about things? I think we really do a pretty good job with that. I think River North does a good job. Kansas City Business Council does a good job. There are a lot of leaders in our community that are putting information out there. Facebook even does a good job. I would have never thought I'd be on Facebook as much as I am now, but it's really important because it's how people communicate. But I also think it's important to realize that ward by ward, we communicate differently. And it's never become more clear than when there's a divisive issue. The members in Ward 1, where I'm at, some are social media savvy or could care less about, they know how to do it, but they don't do it. And then they might go to the little quarterly newsletter that the mayor puts out and go for that for its information. But more often we just chat with each other. I walk my dog through the neighborhood. If they have something to say, they know where to find me. They'll come up to my door. Ward 2, very tech savvy. They do a lot of their business. They communicate that way online. Ward 3 and 4, a little bit more like Ward 2. So we need to be mindful that just because not everybody's on Facebook or not everybody's communicating in ways that everybody else can see, that doesn't mean they don't have an opinion and an educated opinion. It's just they tend to do that one-on-one, like in my community.
What is your position on the streetcar expansion into North Kansas City?
Well, I'd be delighted. I love the streetcar. My girlfriend and I go to concerts at Sprint Center on occasion, and we always take the streetcar. We park our little cars down the River Market, take the streetcar down there. Irish Fest, take the streetcar. Anytime I can take the streetcar and park in the River Market and go that way, we do it. It's an amazing thing. I grew up in St. Louis. We had the light rail there. Not when I was there. There was no such thing. But I used the light rail quite a lot when I would go visit family in St. Louis. We need to expand the streetcar. The light rail in St. Louis gets people from point A to point B for nearly no cost, and it's a fabulous thing. In 2013, there was a study done, and it's actually online. You can look at it, and again, I wrote it down because it's got a long name to it, and it's called the North Rail Streetcar Study. You can look it up, and it's about 176 pages. So it's not like Northtown hasn't thought about this when the whole idea of streetcars came around. It was going to go to Burlington, just at the beginning of Burlington, not all the way down, but enough to, get people from River Market over to here. Kansas City didn't even get the streetcar started till 2016. And by that time, all their plans and their continued plans for the future is to head south to eventually end up at UMKC and then maybe beyond that. Burlington Corridor project, which is on hold now, like many things, because it's expensive and we need to figure out our budgets and whatnot. It doesn't eliminate that idea. Nothing's ever eliminated that idea. I think that it would be a fabulous thing for Northtown. But I'm not going to sit here and promise the sun, the moon, the stars. It's irritating to me when people promise things that they know are not going to happen right away or in the foreseeable future. I can't run as a candidate and say, there's going to be a grocery store. I'm going to promise you I'm going to bring a grocery store, because I know there's only one lot that's allotted for a grocery store, and it's in 1 North, and they haven't brought a grocery store there yet. So you can't, it's lovely to have these ideas, but you can't promise the sun, the moon, the stars. Were they to come in, absolutely I'd support it. I already support it for the short run it has in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. And apparently I didn't get the button pushed, so that worked out perfectly. What is your position on affordable housing in North Kansas City, including single-family dwellings and apartments?
Well, I would just love to see single-family dwellings pop up everywhere. But the reality is that what's happening is they're building apartment buildings. I mean, this is kind of the way. It's not like we're unique to anybody else, but the properties here in Kansas City, the city itself, we don't own a lot of property in Northtown. We got the little place over there by City Center that we're gonna, by City View. That's probably going to pop up and it's going to be apartments. It's going to be apartments that are going to be of similar price range. I don't know. The developer's not been decided, but common sense would dictate that the market will bear that they're going to be apartments that are going to be 1-2 bedroom, not exactly family friendly, and still very expensive for your normal family of 4. The apartments that are being built over in River North right now, they're beautiful, and the layout's going to be fabulous. I've looked at all the designs, but they're already advertised as high end. That's not affordable.
Let me clarify for our viewers that you had said River North, but you meant
I
One
meant
North.
One North. I apologize.
Just,
You're right.
just because it's
Thank you.
confusing, and
No,
I want
no,
to make
no,
sure
no, no.
everybody's
Thank you for
on the same
correcting me.
page.
Yeah, One North.
I hate correcting people, but,
No,
but the viewers, this is important for them to know.
I'm happily corrected. Lord knows I make enough mistakes, but I was talking One North. The apartment buildings over there are advertised literally as high end, so that does not seem probably affordable, not to me, maybe not to others. You know, it is a seller's market here in North Kansas City. On my block alone, 6 homes we've lived there for a little over 2 years. 6 or 7 homes turned over in that amount of time, and they were sold before the realtor's signs were actually posted. I always joke they put their signs out just to advertise their business because the house is already sold. You know, even the apartments that are affordable are only studio, 1, 2 bedroom. I actually, literally again, I don't have a solution to this problem at all, because if you're a builder, you got to make money. It costs money, and we're going up, not across. It's not like we could take that little super block and put in a whole bunch of wonderful little, homes that match everything down in the bungalows over in Ward 3. Nothing would delight me more, but the reality is that's not what's happening. I do want to reference, and I told you I was going to bring this reference because I am no expert on affordable housing.
And while you do that, I'm going to go over here to see if we start having questions.
Can I still talk?
Yes, that's why.
So I'm just going to refer you to this particular article I found today. It's called "The Cost of Affordable Housing, Does It Pencil Out?" It's done by the Urban Institute, and it was done in 2020, so it's fairly new, and it talks about the realities of affordable housing in small communities such as ours.
So we have a few moments, and I may ask a couple of extemporaneous questions while we're waiting to see if anybody that is viewing has any questions for you. This would be a good time to post them in the comments, and I'll check the phone camera at the same time as I check this one more time.
Okay.
Wow. So as you have been a council member, 1 term so far, what has been your single most important accomplishment that you feel like you've contributed to?
Okay, this is going to sound very frivolous to anyone who doesn't live in Ward 1 and who did not live when we had league football there. Okay? One of the reasons I ran for city council, because I'm sort of a grassroots kind of person, is my house on Fayette and the house across from me, Randy, whose last name will be left out. He and I spent all weekend, every weekend, running over to the football stadium, because you could just walk over to it, going up to the announcer's booth and telling them to turn down the music or turn down the announcer because they were too loud and or offensive. Literally every weekend. You could hear them all the way over on Burlington. So finally, instead of just being upset about it, I thought, one of the first things I'm going to do when I become a council member is address this issue. Fortunately, the mayor sent me and another representative. We periodically go to the school board meetings, and I jumped that issue right away. And within a week, league football, I was contacted by the school board, and they said, Rita, we have to have one more weekend because league football came in from out of state and they rented hotel rooms, but that'll be the last weekend they're here. And they were gone. And even the little league kids, who through no fault of their own, but had parents who thought, the announcer was Howard Cosell and had to be very loud and flamboyant, even that quieted down. And that happened within less than a month of my being on council. I went, wow, this is kind of a good thing. You actually can make a difference. Recently, again, it's a frivolous but not frivolous thing. I had a number of my residents, many of whom are older and our trash cans back up into the alley, complaining about the trash can lids not going down. Because when it rains, they're really heavy. I'm short. It's hard for me to wrestle one down and empty out the water. Contacted Eric. I'm not saying this for sure, but when I went out last Friday, I looked all the way down the alley, behind the house of Erie, my house on Erie, and every trash can lid was down. And others in the neighborhood have told me the trash can lids were down. And I know that I say this because we have big issues, and I think big issues are important, and I do study the big issues. But I think sometimes we lose track of things that are like everyday important to people. The city will tell you I'm kind of a stickler. I will like contact Eric and say, okay, this lawn, this lawn, and this lawn, this lawn needs to be mowed, or there's this code violation and this code violation, and it's hard to do that. Well, not hard, but it seems silly to do that sometimes in the middle of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. But I'm still doing it. You know, I still contacted them and said, trash lids need to be down. There's no excuse for them anymore. They know their route now. You know, that's kind of what I do. And it's the little things that I feel are an accomplishment. I also think it was an accomplishment to partner and to work with my fellow city council members with the bike plan to not have them have a dedicated path through the industrial area or common sense dictated on Swift. I am not against bikes. I have a bicycle, love bicycling, none of that sort of thing. But that just didn't make sense to me.
We have a question from someone who's viewing. What can the city do to build relationships with neighboring communities?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I hadn't thought about it now, but I'm thinking about it at this time. I don't see any reason why we couldn't attend their city council meetings. I think that would be a really good way to go. I mean, as many of my fellow city council members have talked about through the pandemic, we are an island in the middle of a lot of other communities.
True.
We don't have to be invited to the table to go to other city council meetings. And I would bet you, and I cannot guarantee this, but I would suspect if one of us showed up at Gladstone City Council, Riverside, or any of the communities around us, and we came in and we introduced ourselves, not only would they welcome us, they would say, oh, look, we have as a guest here at our city council meeting, Rita Pearce from North Kansas City. This might be a really good way to do it. We don't have to make a big production of it. We could do something small, you know, and just listen in and find out what's going on with them and be acknowledged that we're there. Even if they didn't acknowledge us, at least they would know that we were paying attention and we could see what they're saying at their meetings. I just thought of that now, but I would think that would be interesting even to me to go do something like that.
Might be informative.
It would be very informative.
How do you feel about adding four-way stop signs at 21st, 23rd, and 26th Avenues at Fayette to slow traffic down?
Okay, I am thinking my way through my community there. I have no problem with four-way stop signs. Matter of fact, I had just sent an email to Eric because there's so many kids on the little one-way pieces on Fayette and on Erie playing in the streets, which is fine, which is one of the things I love about it. But traffic, it always goes too fast through here, and particularly since there's more traffic. I have no problem with putting the stop signs there. They already told me that putting, children at play signs is not an advisable thing to do. There's a whole bunch of really good reasons for that, so it's not something I'm going to ask to be put on the city council agenda. But that would be a really good idea. I mean, if you stop, you're going to have to at least hopefully look, and then you'd see kids out there playing. I have no problem with that idea at all.
We have time for about one more question. If someone who is viewing wants to ask a question, I'm going to just check the camera over here to see if there's anything on that feed. Okay, I'll check this one right here. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and give you 3 minutes to talk about anything else that you want to convey to the voters for the election on June 2nd. Just see people that are tuning in, but I'm not seeing any new questions coming in. So with that, we will go ahead and proceed to your closing statement. And if you want to just look straight into the camera.
Okay, I'm kind of known for being extemporaneous. I have absolutely nothing in particular prepared. I do encourage you to vote. I mean, the local elections are notoriously small. For a community that has so many things that they want to say to us that are on the council now or to future council members, the best way to do that is to get out and to vote. It's wonderful we have this kind of an opportunity to speak to people in a way we might not otherwise have had. I kind of like it that we're doing it by video because then it probably reaches more people. I would like your vote. I didn't run for office not to want to be voted in. If you do have questions and concerns and that you're just not, tuning in now because I am the incumbent, look up my email on the city website. I'll be happy to answer any questions. You may or may not like my answers. And if I don't have an answer to something, as I didn't have an answer to some of the things tonight, I will just absolutely say I don't know, or it's not feasible, or I will check into it, but at least I will respond. I will respond to any question from anyone from my ward and from other wards as well if they feel like they need to, be curious about what I'm thinking. I think I pretty much said why I'm running and why the city is important to me, and I just feel like I've gotten my feet wet and I'd like to have a couple more years to do a few more things. I really do think I could help mitigate with my mediation background and just from my personal experience and just my personal philosophy. Some of these disagreements, I think we're more together than we think we are. I think divisive language has separated us. I had a city council member ask me one time, there were 4 items, and he said, Rita, you were going to go for 4 and you went for 3. And I said, well, by voting for 3, item 3, did we not get exactly what we would have gotten with 4, only the language was better? And this gentleman looked at me and thought for a little while, and he goes, well, you're exactly right. So in conclusion, if you have 4 different choices and you agree with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, take 2 because you're still going to get 1 and it won't be as divisive. Take 3 if you're going to take 4 for the same reason. And let's keep the momentum we have built through this horrible time we're going through. A lot of great things. We all know this. We're all in our neighborhoods. Kids running. Everybody knows each other. Sitting on the porch. I feel like it's Andy and Mayberry time. And I'm really kind of enjoying that a lot, both as a person and as a member of the community. So thank you.
And you had 5 seconds to spare.
I'm really good at timing things without timing things.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
you for your candid answers. And thank you for the service to our community so far. Mm-hmm. And again, feel free to put on your calendar to vote on June 2nd.
Yes.
You still have time to register for absentee voting. You have until Wednesday, May 20th at close of business, 5 p.m. to get your request in. So make sure that you do that if you feel that you want to vote, but you don't feel like you are able to go to the voting location, to the precinct, to be able to vote. We want your voice to be counted as well. We will be back at 8 p.m. with councilperson incumbent for Ward 3, Zach Clevenger. And
may I say one more thing?
Yes.
Because it's North Kansas City, and this is not promoting me, I am going to encourage people to vote for Anessa DeLong because she's a hometown girl, even though that's not what we're talking about here. So, let's keep it local.
That's for school board.
That's for school board. And I'm not paid to do this, and she didn't ask me to do it, and if she's watching, she'll be surprised I'm doing it. But as I was walking through the community and seeing her yard signs, I thought, this would be a really good opportunity to continue to promote North Kansas City with a very worthy candidate. So let's keep it at home and do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you will tune back in at 8 p.m. for Zach Clevenger. We will do this again tomorrow evening and Monday and Tuesday of next week as well. A side note, there are a couple of people that you will have seen that are on the ballot and are scheduled to be on the ballot, but we have not yet heard from them that they would like to have an opportunity to speak in this format. But we want to assure everyone that every candidate has been asked to participate and given equal opportunity to do so.
That's true.
Thank you, Rita, for being the first one.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, Zach's up next.
That was fun.